Rain whispered over the sleeping city, tracing silver lines along cracked pavements and tired rooftops. Beneath the lonely streetlight stood Lena, a girl born into quiet poverty, her dreams folded carefully behind weary eyes. She worked at a small bakery that smelled of sugar and sorrow, spending her days serving smiles she couldn't afford to keep. Yet, even in her worn-out shoes, she carried a spark, the fragile belief that life still had something beautiful left for her. That night, a sleek black car glided to a stop across the street. From its warm interior stepped Adrian Hale, the young heir to one of the city's largest empires, a man raised in marble halls, surrounded by people who praised but never truly knew him. He had left a charity gala early, suffocating beneath chandeliers that glittered like cages. When he noticed the girls struggling to close the bakery's heavy shutter, something within him stirred, curiosity, perhaps, or the longing to feel something real. He crossed the street, rain tapping against his shoulders, and offered his help. Lena hesitated. Men like him didn't belong in her world. But his smile was calm, unforced, the kind that disarmed her fear. Together they pulled the shutter down, hands brushing for a heartbeat, enough to send a quiet shiver through the night air. He said good night, she nodded, and he walked away. Yet as Adrian looked back once more, her reflection stayed with him, not as the poor girl from the bakery, but as the only genuine thing he had seen in years. The next morning, Lena thought the encounter had been nothing more than a strange, passing moment, a dream washed away by daylight. Yet when she unlocked the bakery's door, a small detail caught her eye, a folded napkin left by the window, with elegant handwriting that read, "Thank you for the help. A.H." She smiled faintly, thinking he must have forgotten it. But over the following days, the black car returned. Each time, Adrian bought the same simple loaf of bread, the cheapest one, always insisting it was his favorite. Lena didn't believe him, but she played along, her heart warming a little more with every visit. Adrian found peace in those minutes. For the first time in years, he wasn't surrounded by cameras, investors, or insincere laughter. Just a girl with flour on her cheeks, and a kindness untouched by the world he came from. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled outside, the power went out in the bakery. The lights died, but the silence between them grew alive. Adrian helped light a candle, his fingers brushing hers, a spark in the dark. Their eyes met, and neither spoke. Words would have broken the moment. When the lights finally returned, they both pretended nothing had happened. But inside, something had changed. Lena began to wait for the sound of that black car, Adrian began to crave the scent of warm bread and the girl who baked it. Two souls from opposite worlds, drawn together not by fate, but by the quiet need to be understood. Weeks turned into months, and the visits became part of their rhythm, like the heartbeat of something they both feared to name. Adrian's world still spun with deadlines and luxury, but his mind drifted to the scent of baked bread and the sound of Lena's laughter. She didn't know that his name echoed in the city's magazines, that people bowed when he entered a room. To her, he was just Adrian, the man who smiled like he had finally found home. One evening, he asked if she'd ever seen the sea. Lena shook her head, her eyes soft but curious. The next morning, a note appeared on the bakery counter, "Meet me by the pier at sunset." She almost didn't go. What if it was wrong? What if the world reminded her she didn't belong beside him? But something stronger than fear pulled her there. The pier was bathed in gold when she arrived. Adrian stood waiting, holding 2 cups of coffee, the wind teasing his hair. When she approached, he said quietly, "I wanted to show you something real, something money can't buy." They watched the sun sink into the horizon, the waves whispering secrets only they could hear. For a while, there were no walls between them, no wealth, no poverty, only 2 hearts beating in rhythm with the sea. As night fell, he turned to her and said, almost in a whisper, "You make everything feel human again." Lena didn't reply. She simply smiled, because deep down, she felt it too. The world around them began to notice what they tried to hide. The driver who waited for Adrian, the neighbors who whispered when Lena smiled too brightly, everyone could see the invisible thread tying them together. But love, like the stars, shines brightest just before the clouds move in. Adrian's family found out first. His father, a man carved from ice and expectation, summoned him to the family estate. "You're a Hale," he said coldly. "You don't belong in a bakery. She will ruin everything we've built." Adrian tried to explain, but words meant little to a man who measured love in profits. "She's not after your money?" His father scoffed. "Then what is she after? Your name?" That night, Adrian stood by the window of his penthouse, city lights glimmering like 1,000 lies below. He held his phone for hours, typing messages to Lena he never sent. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was the heir to the Hale Corporation, that his world was made of glass and gold, but fear held him back. He didn't want her to look at him differently. Meanwhile, Lena waited in the bakery, the warmth of the oven her only comfort. The black car didn't come for 3 days. Each hour stretched like an eternity. When he finally appeared, his smile was dimmer, his eyes heavy with conflict. She sensed it instantly. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then lied, "Just work." But as she handed him his loaf of bread, their fingers touched, and in that simple contact, she felt the storm inside him. Love was there, yes. But so was fear. Fear of the world too cruel to let them be. The rain returned, heavier this time, drumming against the bakery windows like an echo of their hearts. Lena could sense the distance growing between them, not in words, but in silences. Adrian still came every few days, but his visits were shorter, his smiles quieter. The world he had hidden was closing in. One night, after closing, she found him waiting outside, soaked and trembling. "I can't keep lying to you," he said. His voice cracked like thunder. "I'm not who you think I am." He told her everything, the empire, the wealth, the expectations. And as he spoke, her eyes dimmed, not from anger, but from fear of losing what was real. "So all this time," she whispered, "I was just a secret?" Adrian reached for her hands. "No, you were the only truth I had." But the truth was heavy. It sat between them like a wall made of gold. She looked at him, this man who could have anything, and realized that loving him meant stepping into a world that would never welcome her. "I don't fit there, Adrian," she said softly. "And you'll never truly escape it." Rain fell harder. He wanted to argue, to beg, but her tears fell first. She turned away, her silhouette fading behind the glass as the storm swallowed her steps. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt poor, stripped of everything money could buy. Days passed, but to Adrian, time lost meaning. The world around him kept spinning, meetings, contracts, elegant dinners, yet everything felt hollow. Lena's absence haunted him like a melody that refused to fade. Every night, he drove past the bakery, hoping to see her light still burning, but the shutters stayed closed, and the window was dark. Lena tried to move on too. She told herself love wasn't enough, that their worlds could never meet. Still, each loaf she baked carried his memory, the way he smiled, the way he looked at her like she was the only person who mattered. Her heart, no matter how hard she tried, refused to forget. One evening, she found a small envelope slipped under the bakery door. Inside was a simple note in Adrian's handwriting. "If love is a crime between our worlds, then let me be guilty forever." Tears blurred her vision. She knew he meant every word, but love alone couldn't mend the distance between stars. A week later, she saw his face on the news. The headline read, "Adrian Hale rejects inheritance, walks away from family empire." Lena's heart stopped. He had done the unthinkable, given up the life he was born into. For her. That night, when she stepped outside, the black car was gone, replaced by a man standing under the rain, holding nothing but a single loaf of bread. "May I start over?" he asked quietly. Lena didn't answer. She just stepped forward, tears mixing with the rain, and placed her hand over his. Sometimes love doesn't need words, only the courage to choose it. The rain fell gently this time, like the sky itself was blessing what once seemed impossible. Adrian stood before the bakery, no longer in a tailored suit, no driver, no title. Just a man, ordinary and free. Lena opened the door slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief in something deeper. "Forgiveness." He smiled, uncertain, almost shy. "I don't know who I am without that world," he said softly, "but I know who I want to be, with you." She stepped closer, her heart trembling. "You gave up everything," she whispered. Adrian shook his head. "No," he said, his voice calm, steady, "I gave up nothing. I finally found everything." For a long moment, they stood there, two souls who had walked through storm and shadow, meeting again in the quiet light of truth. No music played, no witnesses watched. Just the scent of warm bread, the rhythm of rain, and the warmth of two hands finding home. Lena leaned into him, her forehead resting against his chest. The city around them blurred, the noise fading until there was only the sound of hearts remembering how to beat together. He kissed her forehead, gentle and sure, and in that instant, the world felt small and infinite all at once. Love hadn't changed who they were, it had simply revealed who they'd been all along. And so, under the soft rain, the poor girl and the rich man stood side by side, not divided by the world anymore, but united by a love strong enough to rewrite it. Months passed, and the city slowly forgot the story of the rich man who left everything behind. But in a small corner street, a new sign appeared above a bakery door, Lena and Adrian's hearth. Inside, the smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee filled the air. Customers came not only for the pastries but for the feeling, that quiet warmth that came from two people who had learned what love truly meant. Sometimes Adrian would glance through the window and see the same streetlight where he first met her, its golden glow still flickering, as if remembering. Lena would catch his gaze, smile softly, and whisper, "We made it." He'd take her hand across the counter, flour dusting their fingers like stardust. No luxury, no fortune, just peace. And when rain fell again, as it always did, they didn't hide from it anymore. They stepped outside together, letting the drops touch their faces, a reminder of every storm they had survived. Because real love doesn't live in mansions or fade in hardship. It lives in the quiet moments. The ones that last forever.